Welcome back, listeners, to a brand new episode of the New Standard. And the title of this week's program is I Am Fundamentally Against Comfort. And that quote should sound familiar to you from Mike Tomlin's quote, one of his famous Tomlinisms that he uses, and he busted it out this week at the I think the coaches symposium or the coaches meeting, and he busted it out this week. But we're going to jump more into the show, and we'll jump into that. But before we jump into it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell. And if you get the show via podcast, make sure you do a search for the New Standard and Lance Williams and Neil Coulong. And we're probably going to do pre-recorded shows until Big Neil comes back. We'll probably do that. We'll probably just do pre-recorded shows. It's a little easier for me with my schedule to be able to manage that and do it. But again, if you're checking out the show, make sure you go to YouTube and do a search for the New Standard. And we're going to talk about the context in which Mike Tomlin said that I am fundamentally against comfort. And I get what he says, and being the wordsmith that he is, he couldn't just say I don't like to feel comfy because I ain't done shit. Like, he could have said that, but I guess I'm fundamentally against comfort sounds much better than don't get comfortable, brother. I guess it sounds much better than that. But I want to jump into a couple of things. But before we jump into, I think the biggest thing that is on the horizon, other than the draft, outside the draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers in regards to their roster. And I think it revolves around a quarterback question of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and who will be the quarterback moving forward, and why the date of May 2nd is so important in this discussion. But before we do that, I want to jump into just a little bit of a conversation that I had with a couple of you yesterday on X, in Steeler Nation, X, Twitter, whatever it's called, Muskie for Elon, Muskie chat, whatever we want to call it. And a lot of you out there were writing about how successful Omar Khan has been. And I want to give a big shout out to Under Arrest, at Under Arrest, to Big Dane. Big up to him, longtime supporter of the show. We were kind of going back and forth on this. How would he judge Omar Khan being a success? And he thought that Omar Khan has had a really good, successful, uh, preseason in terms of the moves that he's made to fill out the roster, reshuffling of the quarterback room, so to speak. And I'm not saying I'm right. We disagreed slightly, but I just wanted to illuminate my point and just illustrate it more on the show. And, and I don't think Dane was wrong in assessing the moves one by one and the different things that Omar Khan has done and judging his performance based on that. I mean, that is his job. His job is to build the roster. And, in Dane's opinion, he's done a solid job of doing that. I don't disagree. Where I disagreed was, what is the ultimate factor in which to judge the coach, the owner, the franchise, the players, everyone involved with putting the product out on the field? How do you judge that? And longtime friend of the program, Steel City Insider's own Jim Wexell, schooled me years ago on what was the most important thing. And when I say it, you're going to say, duh, no shit. Of course, that's the most important thing. But sometimes I think in this landscape of so much information, I think sometimes we lose the forest for the trees. I'm guilty of it. And I think other people in Steeler Nation are as well. I think one person who isn't guilty of it is the person that says, I am fundamentally against comfort. I think he understands what the goal is and what the team is trying to accomplish and how you judge the team. Long-winded way of me saying simply, me and Jim were having a conversation years ago, maybe about 7, 8 years ago. And I was throwing all these scenarios out to Jim about how to judge a successful draft. If at the end of the draft, you look out 5 years, if you've drafted 2 first rounders and they become all pros, and you get another couple of guys like an Antonio Brown, and you get all these players and this value and this so on and so forth, and that's how you judge a successful draft. And Jim said simply, judge everything based on wins and losses. That's it. I could care less if the Steelers pulled off the heist of the century and having a quarterback room that costs about $5 million if both them bums can't play. If at the end of all this, next year at this time, we're talking about Russ didn't cook, he sucked, and Justin Fields is a bum, then guess what? And the Steelers don't win, guess what? Khan sucked. All those moves, the con artist, and big up to the Steelers for bringing in Cordero Patterson. There's been some changes to the kickoff or the punt kickoff return rules. Man, I saw a video clip of that. I couldn't tell what the hell was happening. You had people lined up here, 2 people over here. The ball went here. Nobody moved. Then everybody moved. I didn't know what I was watching. Anything taken from the XFL, I don't know. I'm glad it's only on a 1-year basis. I mean, anyway, it gives more players an opportunity to make some rosters, and I think the Steelers were very prudent in going out and get Cordero Patterson to impact the team from a return perspective. Now that the return game is being emphasized more with the rule change, but simply, it's wins and losses. That's the criteria for the coach, for the players, for the GM, ownership. They all get judged by wins and losses. If the team wins, guys don't get cut as much, or maybe fans are happy. Tomlin gets extensions. Omar gets extensions. None of us are pissed off. 8 million people subscribe to the show. It's all lovely when you're winning. That is the ultimate judge. Let me jump into one more thing before I jump into the significance of this date coming up in May as it pertains to both quarterbacks. And again, you're checking out the new standard. The name of this week's program is I Am Fundamentally Against Comfort. So please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And Mike Tomlin's a cold piece, man. He's a cold piece. And this was his quote in describing trading Kenny Pickett. He is a master of using the English language to say absolutely nothing, or say it in a way where to discern its meaning, you have to literally pick it apart piece by piece. He said the following: from his perspective, his being Kenny, he felt like a change of scenery would be a good thing. Obviously, when we felt the trajectory of the business with Chicago moving in the right direction, those dominoes started falling. Basically said he wanted out. We got Justin Fields. Peace out, pimping. That's just basically what it was. That's just basically what it was. Peace out, pimping. We don't need you, dog. We got a sufficient backup, a guy with a higher ceiling. And hey, man, you want to leave? Kick rocks, brother. Peace out. I mean, that's basically what he said. And he can't say it like I'm saying it, but he said as soon as things started to flow in the right direction from regards to Chicago and getting Justin Fields, that Kenny Pickett's ass was expendable. And now Kenny Pickett's in Philadelphia saying he handled everything correctly. If he did, he would still be a Steeler. I mean, look, bottom line, you got to be willing to compete in a National Football League. But let's jump into this May 2nd date and what it means and why it's a big deal for the Steelers. And let me jump into, because I want to give this guy credit because I thought the article was solid. But but the May 2nd date is critical for the Steelers because the 5th-year option for Justin Fields and Najee Harris, by the way, both first-round draft picks, must be triggered by May 2nd. Meaning, if they trigger the 5th-year option, they control the movement of the player throughout the 5 years of a first-rounder's possible contract. And based on a different factors and calculators and isms and risms and risms and risms and isms, you come up with whatever their 5th-year number is in terms of how much they're going to get paid. And you can find that information on, Over the Cap. You can get that information there if you wanted the exact number. I have the estimate, but if you wanted the exact number, you could get it on Over the Cap. And so let me credit Charles Robinson, senior NFL writer. It was a fantastic article. And if you want to find that article, go to YouTube Sports or Y Sports. And the name of the article is Steelers have a revolution, somehow when I'm reading it, I can't read. The Steelers have a deadline approaching and Russell Wilson, Justin Fields quarterback conundrum. First of all, I don't think it's a quarterback conundrum. And when we heard from Mike Tomlin at the coaches meeting, he talked about how Russell Wilson is in pole position. It only Mike Tomlin would use pole position as opposed to QB1. So his rationale, and I'm sure if you guys probably, if you're listening to this show, you've seen the interview, you've watched it. And essentially what he's saying is, and this comes to the 3 Ps, performance, pay, pedigree, that Russell Wilson's pedigree put him into pole position. Another P, 2 Ps, pole position, pedigree. So it put him in a pole position because of his pedigree, because of the process in which he selected the Steelers, doing his homework, his research, the work he's put in, the system, the mechanisms that he's used over the years to have success, to be successful. All that has put him in pole position to be QB1, Justin Fields to be QB2, and Justin Fields takes a step back and learns from the professional nature, another P, at which Russell Wilson approaches his profession, another P. And so that's all well and good for now. Now, when there's no football being played. But the Steelers have a decision that they have to make come May 2nd if they're going to give Justin Fields the 5th-year option. The cost of the 5th-year option would be roughly $26 million. You tack that on to what he would be paid this year, that would be about 28 million, 29 million. Let's just cap it off at 30 million over the next 2 years. Average of APY of 15 million. If they don't decide to give him the 5th-year option, he would be then eligible for free agency. They could franchise tag him for a price of $42 million or give him an extension. Now, I think what we could say is, hell no, he ain't getting a franchise tag. No way whatsoever. For him to be franchise tagged, essentially Russell Wilson would not have to play this year. He would have to beat Russell Wilson out to be QB1, have a fantastic season. Now, if all that happened, great. Franchise tag the kid. Steelers have found their quarterback for the next 5 years. Odds of that happening? Nah, not at all. But let's dig into the option. And I don't think he's going to get the option either. And me and my brother, big Pats fan, went back and forth about this. And although when you look at the cost of quarterbacks on the open market, an APY for a quarterback of $14 million is very cheap, and 28 more, 30 million, 15, 30 million to control his rights over the next year is very cheap in regards to what a very good quarterback costs. I mean, you have Deshaun Watson, his cap charge is $65 million, and he can't play. I mean, we know he likes to get rubbed, but he can't play. He's not a good player. So when you look at some of the costs, Daniel Jones is another. You look at the cost of some of these players, it's much cheaper for the Steelers. And again, you're checking out the new standard. I am fundamentally against comfort, and I'm fundamentally against giving out fifth-year options for not playing football. And that's what they would be doing. There's not enough tape in the world to convince, in my opinion, the Steelers to pay or to exercise the fifth-year option and give Justin Fields $25.66 million in a year. No way. And one of the reasons why they wouldn't do that, outside of he hasn't played, which is the biggest reason, the second biggest reason is they just got him for a sixth rounder that could convert to a fourth rounder if he plays a certain amount of snaps. I mean, unless he tears the world on fire, he's not valued right now in the league. I mean, this is a guy that was a first rounder 3 years ago that the Steelers might get for a sixth rounder. His value is in the tank. And my brother brought up the point of Baker Mayfield. At some point in time, to get the money, you got to play. You got to play quality football. I mean, at some point, you got to prove your game is worth the cheddar. I mean, you got to play. And right now, the league doesn't feel Justin Fields is a starter, let alone, why would you give somebody you don't think is a starter $25 million? Would you give Jameis Winston, who's got a better resume than Justin Fields, would you give him $25 million? So there's no way in the world. And also, I think if you try to do that, I think you compromise Russ. I think if I'm looking into my Landstradamus crystal ball, because you know I'm all seeing when it comes to what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do, I think they hope that Russ is going to work out. I think they hope that Russ works out and that they can extend Russ. And Justin Fields is an insurance policy against Russ not working out. In effect, they could then give Justin Fields a short extension to then try to see what he can do as a quarterback after they've had some time to see him play and they've had some time in their building. I think that's how they're going to proceed. When Tomlin says pole position, all that nonsense, Russ is going to have to do a lot to lose the job. A lot to lose the job. I think Tomlin has the thought in his mind, although he says it'll be a competition when the football starts, that Russ wins it. Why else would you make him the presumptive pole position guy? That Russ wins the competition. Justin Fields sits and watches and is entrenched as the two. Russ plays well, hopefully, gets an extension. They move on with Justin Fields, or they offer Justin Fields a small extension to continue to be the backup. I do not think, and me and my brother made a bet on it, obviously, big Pats fan, and big up to everybody in Steeler Nation. Make sure you check out the new standard. I am fundamentally against comfort. Excuse me. Hit the like and subscribe button. There's no way in the world the Steelers exercise the fifth-year option for Justin Fields. However, if they do, it's hey, we're living in a full-time era. Man, this is a new team, a new direction, and this is not your daddy's Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'll be surprised if they give Justin Fields, if they exercise the option. He just hasn't played football for them. I mean, as much as they think they know him, they don't know him. So I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do like the Cordero Patterson signing now that the return game is being reemphasized. But with that, I hope your brackets are not busted. Make sure you watch that quality basketball, college basketball, this Thursday and Friday. And hopefully, if you've got a team in and you're doing well in your brackets, you continue to and have some popcorn, some jujubes, and some brews and all that good stuff and watch the games. But with that, we're going to conclude the show. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers.